Marvin, Hampton, Virginia. All right. Real quick, he plays golf. That's great. That's great information. It truly is.
Yeah, I
Especially
added that
for a
for
guy
you. I
like
figured.
me. I
Yeah.
can jump into that pretty quickly. Okay, so plays golf. His wife was Matt's middle school teacher over 20 years ago. Holy moly. She has Alzheimer's and
Yeah, I found that out.
he recently moved her into a home. Very nice guy, ready to move forward with terms, just need to explain them better. Okay, cool. Let's do it. Phone number there. Got it. Let's do it.
Hello?
Hi, is this Marvin?
Yes.
Hi, Marvin. My name's Pace. I'm partners with Matt Suddeth. How you doing?
All right.
Did he tell you to expect my call today?
Been kind of busy. I think he did, and I might have forgot about it.
No worries. It just might take a couple minutes. Just had a couple of questions. He said that you were still interested in selling the house and you were open to a little seller finance possibility.
What does that mean?
It means that you become the bank and we pay the number you're looking for and we make payments over time.
I don't think I'm interested in that.
Is the house vacant right now or is it a house you're living in?
It's rented.
Oh, it's rented right now. How long is the lease?
I don't have a lease.
Okay, so the tenants that are in there right now are month to month?
60 days.
Oh, God. Okay, so they got to give you 60-day notice before they even get out.
I got to give them 60 days. They got to give me 60. Yep.
Got it. Okay. So in a perfect world, what would you do with the property?
Sell it.
Okay, and at what price?
Well, for some reason, the city hadn't recorded a bedroom. I got a master suite I added.
Okay.
And it turns out I've been on a couple of those sites, and they give me, they said it was selling for $270, but I don't think I'll get that. They don't have. They got the bed as a 3-bedroom. It's got 4, and the 4th one is a master suite. Now I put a lot of money in. I spent about $30,000 on that. So I don't know.
So the city has a room that's not in there, so you're not getting as much value as you'd hope.
Well, they said I'd have to get the city to come out and look, and all that stuff, and look at it and change the tax, because the realtors won't change it unless the city records show it has 4 bedrooms. I don't know. I never heard of such, but.
Yeah, we deal with it all the time. We buy people's houses that have like a little addition on the back, and because the thing wasn't permitted properly, it might be perfectly fine structurally, but it's not permitted.
I had a contractor that did. I don't know how it didn't get recorded. That's what. I had
he probably just didn't submit the paperwork. That's all. It probably just comes down to something really simple.
Well, the guy had a stroke during the time he was doing it, and his son finished the work. So I don't know. That might have.
Oh yeah, that might have been the hiccup. How long ago was that?
Oh God, that was 2009. I think it's been 10 years at least.
Okay, so if you think, what do you think you could get for it in the situation it's in right now?
Well, I think I'd be happy with 240.
Okay, you'd be at 240, and then you pay commissions and stuff out of that, and then you'd end up walking away with like 210, something like that.
No, I don't want to get less than 230 with commissions.
Okay. So I'm not a real estate agent, so I don't want to get confused. I'm not a real estate agent, nor would I ever be a real estate agent. So I'm not suggesting you pay me commissions if I buy it. I'm just suggesting if you do sell it on the market, you've got to sell it for a price that, is high enough that you would net 230. So you would have to sell it for 270 on the market, probably pay commissions, all that kind of stuff. And then you'd probably walk away with like 230 to 245, somewhere in that ball range.
What they charge? 6%?
6% plus you're another 3% with closing costs, home warranties, inspections, all that kind of stuff. So you're about 9% total. National, I think the national average right now is 11% is what it costs to sell a house.
Okay.
So you'd be, you know, if you sold it for 270, sounds like that'd be a hard stretch to get because you're missing that bedroom and you've got tenants in the house. So that might be hard too. So if you listed it, let's say you think you could list it for 250?
Well, I really, probably 249 or something.
Okay, so if you list it for 249, what do you think you'd get in your pocket after commissions, closing costs, inspections, maybe doing the permitting stuff, all that stuff?
I don't know. I tell you the truth, I haven't really gotten to that detail. I want to think about that. I just know the market got pretty good, and then I started thinking about it again.
Right. Well, can I tell you why I'm calling? Because I don't think selling it for cash is the way you should go. But again, you don't know me from Adam, so taking advice from me, you know, is whatever. But my thought is if the highest you're going to get selling it on the market is a headache and maybe 220, 225 in your pocket, why not sell it on seller finance at 270?
Well, I don't know what I get into. That's the only thing.
You don't want to get into it? Is that what you said?
No, I don't know what I'm getting into when you're talking. I haven't looked at owner. I haven't looked at the, financing myself.
Well, it's pretty simple. Do you have it owned? Do you own it free and clear?
Yes.
Okay. And how much are you collecting in rent right now?
$1,550.
Okay. And then out of that $1,550, you pay taxes, insurance, you pay all that kind of stuff. You probably end up netting around $1,100.
I paid flood insurance too. It's on a creek.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So I don't know if I'm not making a lot of money.
Okay. So what if we came in and actually gave you a monthly payment and you acted as if you were the bank? And so we settled on a number of like, let's say 270,000, and I started making you monthly payments on it, and you become the bank and I'm the new borrower.
Okay. Why do you want to do that?
Well, because we buy a lot of real estate, and the fastest way to buy real estate is to avoid going through banks and going through all the application process. And think about if I go to the bank to go get a loan on your house right now, what am I going to run into? The bank is going to say, hey, there's a non-permitted addition here. We need to have you, I got to deal with the same stuff you're dealing with in order for me to buy that house with the loan. So why would I go get a loan and have to come in and lowball you when I could come in and give you the number you're looking for? And in that situation, it's a win-win because I can avoid going through the banks, and I can avoid having to go through the permit, and I can avoid going through all that kind of stuff. Everybody wins.
Okay.
So essentially we would avoid the bank, right? At the end of the day, if I buy that house from you, I got to go through permitting to get that extra bedroom accounted for. I got to go through all that kind of stuff. But if I go to you and I go to the bank of Marvin, I say, hey, Marvin, let's create a promissory agreement that says I owe you $270,000. I give you a down payment, so you got some cash in your pocket, and then I make you a monthly payment and you're the bank. I take over the headache of the tenant. I take over the headache of the creek and the insurance and all that kind of stuff. And you just collect a monthly check without a headache.
So what kind of down payment are you talking about?
Well, when I go into the bank, right, like Bank of America or Wells Fargo or Chase, I always ask them, what kind of loan programs do you guys have? And they tell me, well, we got 3.5% down payment. We got 10% down payment. We got 20% down payment loan programs. And usually the bank is who tells me what they want. So at the end of the day, you got to just tell me what you want and what you're comfortable with.
So what do you do with a house when you get it?
We do a variety of things. Sometimes we turn them into assisted livings, right? Sometimes we turn them into behavioral health and we help people in bad situations. Sometimes we turn them into affordable housing. But ultimately it's usually some sort of charitable thing that we're trying to help out people, and we get the government involved to help us out with all that kind of stuff as well.
So,
Here, let me, it sounds like we're not going to make a decision on this call. So let me plant a couple seeds and we could do a follow-up call.
okay.
At the end of the day, here's the reason why people turn to seller finance. Okay. Number one, when you go and you sell it on the market, I don't care what you list it for, 249, 259, 269. That's not what you're going to put in your pocket.
Right.
Right. You're going to walk away with, actually, this is how much money you'll walk away with. An unknown number. You're essentially crossing your fingers and hoping that you get as high as you can because you're waiting for a buyer and you're waiting for an agent to do their job. And then you got to pay an agent to sell your house. You got to go through all that kind of stuff. And maybe you walk out with 220 grand. Then when you get that 220 grand, what are you going to do with it? Now you don't have a return on it. It's just sitting in your bank account doing nothing. And with the way inflation's going, you're actually losing money. So most of the sellers that are selling it to us on seller finance, they say, look, I don't want to go through any of that headache. I just want the price I want, which for you, it sounds like 270 is the magic number. So let's say that we've come up with a magic number of 270. Instead of just selling it to me on payments, you can charge me interest. So now your investment is actually making you more money than 270 over time. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What kind of interest is going now?
Usually it's about 2.5% to 3.5% interest is the going rate with banks right now.
About people that don't have good credit, what do they have at that?
I think they're like 4.5%.
How much down payment are people putting up on a house for 250?
At 250, the loan programs that we're seeing, there's a lot of down payment assistance where the government's actually coming in and paying for their down payments. And then there's another one that's a 3.5% down payment program. And then the one that we see kind of rarely, but it still is around, is about 10%.
How do people get government to pay a down payment?
They go to down payment assistant programs.
I mean, is this people like that? Can they afford the house, or they don't have down payments? What is it?
They can't. Those people can't afford the houses, which is why you're probably not talking to those people.
I mean, the government's trying to get them in houses. Is that what it's?
That's what it is. Yeah. If you just go to the internet and you type in down payment assistant, our government is printing money and just giving people down payments right now to get them into houses.
Is that mostly people that minorities are trying to, I guess?
Yeah, they're just trying to help people and all that kind of stuff. That's not my business model. Our business model is trying to help people that are, they're going through assisted living. They're going through maybe memory issues, or people that have physical disabilities, or those types of things. That's our business model.
Okay. Okay.
And
let me think about. Okay.
So I think with you, at the end of the day, it comes down to, do I want a higher price, and do I want to squeeze out all my profit out of this house? Or do I just want all this money sitting in my bank account doing nothing?
Okay.
And that most of my sellers that are selling on seller finance are sitting there saying, man, I'm glad my money's just not sitting here doing nothing. Because if I gave you a check for $220,000 today, what are you going to do with it?
Invest it.
Invested in what?
Same stuff I invested the rest of my money.
Well, that's the thing is, if you seller finance to me, you are investing. You are a note holder in real estate. It's the greatest investment of all time.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you gonna call me back?
Yeah, here's what I would want to do. I'd want to figure out, it sounds like your magic number is 270,000. I'd like to figure out what's your down payment and what interest rate you'd like. And then let's have a follow-up call sometime next week.
Okay.
You good with that? Will you do some homework for me and then we can touch base and have a conversation?
Yes, I'll do that.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you tremendously, Marvin.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Did we learn anything on that call, everybody? So Matt, did you learn anything on that call? Let me unmute you for a second. There you
are. Yeah, for sure. It was crazy to me because he seemed apprehensive at first when he's all the conversations we've had. He's saying, "Yeah, I'm ready. I'm open," and I don't know. That took me by surprise at first, but I mean, yeah, you're the man. You flew through that. Yeah, and every objection, you know what you're talking about. So he had a lot of questions about this and that, and that's where we usually stumble. What about this percentage? What are banks doing with this? Man, it was so you were knocking them out left and right. So
yeah, so I mean, let's go through that just real quick before I make the next call. Okay. Was I even shattered at all when he's like, no, I'm not interested? Or did I keep the conversation going? I just ignored his objection.
Yeah.
Okay. When a seller says, I'm not interested. No, I'm not interested in that. I didn't say, well, why not?
Right.
What I did is like, oh, okay. So how much money are you going to have in your pocket? And then there's a bunch of little things that I did there that so many people won't notice. But when he said, well, I want 240 at the end of the day, I knew he meant 240 in his pocket. I knew that's what he meant, but I said, oh, okay. So you sell it for 240. So you're walking away with like 220 in your pocket. And I put that on him. And then he came back, oh, well, I don't want anything less than 230. Right. So now I've got him working himself down. Right. We went from 270 to 230 real quick. Now that's my form of anchoring. So now what can I do is I can wait and I can find the pain. What pain did we find that I kept hitting on? He's got an unpermitted addition. He's really not making that much money because he's constantly dealing with tenants and all sorts of BS. Right. Yeah. And so he's sitting there saying, man, this really isn't that great of an investment. And I got him to say that out loud. Once I got him there, I then said, well, and I started saying third-party stories about, well, my other seller. I knew that when he said he wasn't interested in seller finance, it all came down to making sure he understood what was he going to get by having him back into the number, not by having me back into the number. How can I get this guy to back into the number that he would get on a cash deal, which he wouldn't even get that. I was being very generous. And then, but there's no point in arguing with somebody, right? A man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. So me trying to argue this guy down and say, well, honestly, your seller, or I'm sorry, another investor is going to pay 170 on a deal like this. You're asking too much money. Doesn't get me to the end goal. Right. So you'll see where I choose my, my sniper bullets. Right. And, so simple, so incredibly simple. These are like, bro, I've made probably 1,700 of these calls just in the last year for the sub 2 students. Like, think about, this is why students join my mentorship program. And I'm not trying to sell you on this. Obviously you're everybody that knows anything about our program knows what we do in here. But at the end of the day, you'd say you get this one deal off of 1 in 10 leads you brought me. Your first one comes to the table and says, I'm not interested in less than 20 seconds. And by the end of the conversation, I've got this guy now coming up with his down payment and his interest rate. I didn't come up with that. He's going to come up with it and come back to me.
Quick question on that first call. Why did you mention the charity? My guess was you were kind of reading him and kind of who he was.
Because his wife has Alzheimer's.
Oh, okay. I missed that part. Oh, Matt caught that though. Nice.
Yeah. So great freaking question.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Matt Suddeth took really good notes, said his his wife has Alzheimer's. And so I hit home on that really hard. And I brought it up 3 times. maybe I might have even brought it up 4 times. I emphasize it, which is why you noticed it. Did anybody else notice that? I kept bringing that up, like the charity thing and the government and blah, 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 blah. I brought that up because I knew that is what the seller wanted me to say.